Hi, this is Laura Zond,
And this is Janelle Williams.
and we're going to talk with you today about updates to Coalition Manager MSRs, or as we like to call it, MSR 2.0.
All right, so we're going to jump right in here. We have a new platform we will be sharing with you, new MSR 2.0, and there's some new data fields that you will see. So here we go. We're going to start right at the beginning.
So currently, Coalition Manager is being updated, and as you all know, you sending in some MSRs, additional element fields by paper or fax, or you scan them in an email to me. But there are new elements, but as you can see, MSRs are going to look a little different too. So we wanted to go through, this is for domestic violence services, and we want to go kind of what it's going to look like and what changes are. So the good part about with new residential and new non-residential, there's really not changes to what you collect. The change has to do with, if you look to the far right of your screen, are the totals. So it's going to total each thing so you can keep track of, is this the right amount of people that you provided those services to?
All right, same thing goes for new non-residential services. Once again, you have your totals here. And then we have new intimate partner domestic sexual violence services. This is a subcategory that has no changes to it at all.
As far as ongoing services, again, there really isn't any change except that total side, just like there was above. And the same with the ongoing intimate partner sexual violence services, both the ongoing residential and non-residential, there's not a change in that.
And then bed nights, no changes except for you can now see the totals at the end to double check your work.
So the one thing about that is what's not going to be in Coalition Manager 2.0 has to do with the giving you an error if your totals in that above section of new doesn't match the demographic part. And when we get down and talk about that a little bit, but I want to make sure that the totals, close attention to those. As far as unmet requests for shelter and requests for non-residential services, there's no change.
And instead of having a separate section, we're going to scroll right down to demographics. In demographics, everything is still the same as what you were collecting before, except for now you have your total section. And like Laura said, this will not double check against your new client served. So please make sure when you're finished, all your totals match the same as you reported in your new client served. It will not give you an error if you don't make sure they match. And then the one other change is multiracial is now a separate box. It will not be a drop down. If you put someone up here in multiracial, then you'll need to put what those multiracial makeup is down here. It's not a separate drop down, but it's just a part of the continuation of the form. And then you have your ethnicities. Same thing for non-residential clients. Please double check your totals. It will not give you an error message if you enter incorrect totals, so please double check those. And same again with multiracial, it will not drop down.
So the ages, there are, it's going to look very the same. Again, the totals, this goes back to that same thing, won't give you an error message, but if you had 10 people, there would be 10 total in ethnicities, also 10 ages. But as far as like age ranges and that kind of thing for residential and non-residential new participants, there are no changes in those sections. However, when you get to children, there are some age range changes, so please make sure you have 6 to 9, 10 to 12, 13 to 17, and if you have a child that you don't know the age, make sure you get that entered. But again, pay real close attention to these totals. And same with non-residential new participants, in those age ranges have changed a little bit.
And the biggest one to be note of is the 10 to 12 and 13 to 17. It was 10 to 13, now it's 10 to 12. So be real careful when you're running your reports and catch that change in your reports.
And this might look just slightly different. It's not a big change, but in these age ranges for youth IP, residential and non-residential. You got 0 to 12, 13 to 17. Then you have the 16 to 17 qualified minor. If they are a qualified minor, they would go in that section. And then again, the unknown. But again, pay close attention to what your totals say. If they're matching from the information above. So same non-res children as well with youth IP. Now we're going to move into some changes that, and this is one that's on that form you keep sending in. So the Family Violence Prevention Services Act, FIPSA, they had made some changes with some evidence that they now wanted to collect. And that is, there's an annual report that we have to send in. Every state in the nation has to send in. So we wanted to make sure we get these added. But the number of new individuals self-identifying as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or queer. Basically, and we've got for residential and residential, this is something that we do not necessarily need to see on an intake. This is if somebody, in the course of the conversation, at any point in time, they do self-identify voluntarily as LGBTQ.
And you don't have to separate those out. It's just all combined LGBTQ. You don't have to track them separately.
Right.
And then the other part of the form that you've been adding is new individuals for different service categories. So we're going to take a look at some of those. We have new number of individuals for crisis intervention services, residential and non-residential. Those are for individuals that have not received crisis intervention services as of this federal calendar year. So if you have a way to be able to track when they enter a service type, the first time they would enter crisis intervention services, you would track them here.
And remember that the federal fiscal year runs from October 1st to the end of September. And I know it's a little mind-blowing and it may be a little difficult that if somebody didn't receive, say, crisis intervention when they entered, and now they've been there a couple months, and then all of a sudden they do have crisis intervention, technically, number of new individuals, whatever month they received that service the first time, they're new for a number of new individuals, but it's still the same way you've been counting number of contacts new and ongoing and hours new and ongoing. Do the best you can.
All right, and then we also have our case management services, again, residential, non-residential. We are also asking for the number of new individuals to case management services. That's the first time that they have received management service within the federal calendar from your program, and new and ongoing contacts and hours are still the same.
So remember, number of new individuals, you're only counting those one time, but we're still capturing the number of contacts new and ongoing and the number of hours new and ongoing. Hospital advocacy, same thing, number of new individuals. So whatever month, if a person's receiving hospital medical advocacy the first time, they're going to go in there, but you're still going to capture a number of contacts.
Transportation service, that is a new service category that we're asked to collect. Again, we're going to capture the number of new individuals receiving transportation services, along with the number of contacts, new and ongoing, hours, new and ongoing, just like you were for the other service categories. We're going to take a look at this definition here. Just to help clarify, transportation is any type of transportation either provided by an advocate, either you bus pass or pay their taxi fare, some type of modes of transportation that you've given your agency provides to a client. Each time you provide it, you will count that as one contact. So an example here, a participant receives one bus pass, 2 taxi fares, and rides by an advocate, that's 6 contacts. And then you would also add up the hours it took for you to provide those services. Any other thoughts on that, Laura?
No.
All right. Now let's go back to over here.
And so just as a reminder, so in every one of these categories, you are going to see this symbol that looks like a little blue circle with what looks like lowercase I in it, information. Every one of these has has directions on it. It gives you like an example, and just to let you know. So that's on every one of these.
and then it doesn't have an X, so then when you get in there, you have to cough.
All right. So hotline calls. The good news is nothing changed with hotline calls. So you're still gonna, you're still gonna collect the hotline calls as normal. Then with support groups, again, this does have a little bit of a change. So we're still going to capture the number of groups that are led by staff, volunteer, peer, or other layperson. So you're not your therapeutic group. And if you need that reminder again, just push on the I. It's going to give you some definition and some directions. However, they did add the number of new individuals receiving this service. So again, federal fiscal year, maybe somebody's been in your program, hasn't gone to the support group, but now has started. You're going to count them once there. This is the number of groups. That's the total number of groups you've had throughout the month. And then the number of individuals, we're still capturing, which you've been doing up to this point, the number of individuals attending each and every group. So you're going to count everybody each time they attend, but we're still capturing those new individuals attending.
And your licensed professional therapy and therapy groups, that's just the same as your support group, but now we're looking at licensed professionals. So if they are providing licensed professional therapy to individuals, again, you're going to capture the number of new individuals the first time they enter that licensed professional therapy with your program within the federal calendar year, and then the number of contacts and the total number of hours, just like you were before. And then we're going to the number of licensed professional therapy groups. So if groups are 2 or more people in a licensed professional with a licensed professional therapist, total number of those groups provided, how many of those individuals are new to that service, and then how many individuals in total are attending each and every group.
So life skills, parenting, and other groups, again, there was the number of new individuals attending those, but under the number of groups, you're already capturing that currently. Continue to do that. Then the number of new individuals that are new to attending those, and the number of individuals attending each and every group.
We made it through that section.
We did.
Now we get to look at court advocacy. Court advocacy looks basically the same as what you've been capturing. You're still going to capture the number of contacts with assisting with ex partes and full orders, child orders, civil, criminal, obtaining legal services, providing legal representation, and your total number of court advocacy hours. Remember, court advocacy is provided by advocates, and the total number of legal representation hours, which is legal representation provided by an attorney. Now, what is going to be different is you are going to capture now the number of new individuals who is receiving court advocacy or legal representation for the first time from your program during the federal calendar year.
And that's both for residential, and then the next section is non-residential. So the other thing that looks slightly different is where it used to go straight across the page with residential and non-residential, it's just broken into each section. So please make sure you're filling in. If you're doing residential, please make sure that it says residential, and then if it's non-res, make sure you're clicking in the non-res section. And the non-res section looks exactly the same as what Janelle just described. Then interpreter services. So the FIPSA wanted a little more information, and it is about like new individuals receiving these services. So we have, the section looks the same as far as non-English language and deaf or hard of hearing, but it wants to capture the number of new individuals provided that service for the first time. So let's say that you do have an interpreter that you're using for a non-English language, that would be in that category. And of course, if you're using an interpreter for deaf or hard of hearing, it would go under that section. But it's still capturing new ongoing contacts. So as many contacts as that person is provided, you're going to count all of those. And then the number of hours those interpretation services were provided. Now, these are individuals that are being provided that service. Then it's the number of groups or classes held in which interpretation services were provided, and that could be non-English language or deaf or hard of hearing, and that is the total number of groups. Then the number of new individuals attending those groups, so that would be an additional one. And then this is the same as far as the number of individuals needing interpretive services in a group that's new and ongoing.
And remember, interpreter services are a verbal interpretation from one language to another. It's not counting bilingual advocates, but actually using an interpreter to translate from a language the client is comfortable with to a language that the advocate is comfortable working with. Now, if you look at translation, though, translation is written. So that is the number of documents that are translated in writing. And you will count those at the time they are completed, even if a translation document may take several months to complete. Once it's translated and completed, then you will count that in that section.
And just to run back up here to interpretation or interpreters for a moment, also remember, Nell brought up as far as a bilingual advocate. If the bilingual advocate is providing case management and just having the conversation in the language that the person is comfortable with, that's not going to go in any of these categories. There is another person involved. So if the bilingual advocate is interpreting for the person, but say they're at a meeting with another caseworker from another agency, then you can count that. Or if you have to actually contract with an interpreter, then that's counted induction.
All right, and then we get into training and community awareness activities, and guess what? They're just the same as they always had, except for now you have a total at the end of training and community education.
Community awareness, there were no changes. One of the things that you're not seeing anymore are these children's activities. Honestly, what we found, that is not captured anywhere on the FIP report. It's not reported back out in any of our statistics, and honestly, section was confusing for folks. So that section was taken out, but that just means that's just a few less numbers you have to actually enter. Volunteers, this is maybe one of the most exciting things to me, that your number of volunteers and the volunteer hours are actually put together in the same section. So make sure if you're looking at number of volunteers, putting that here, the hours they provided for the month is here, but yay, they are finally together.
Ooh. All right, it's a success story. Now, the one thing that has changed isn't the fact that you have to put in a success story, it's the fact that you have to at least once a year put in a success story. It's always been a part of your MSRs as an option, but now at least once a year, please make sure that you're adding a success story into it. And just remember, your funders are going to ask you for a success story also on their annual reports. Feel free to use this as a resource to go back to help you fill out those success stories for your funder reports.
And if you need any extra instruction on that, you can go up here. There's also, just to remember that if you are giving any information about a survivor's success within the program, make sure that you take out any personal identifying information. And remember that success stories are not just about the survivors, but it may be a new project or program that took your program forward. So it's really about the success of the program as well.
You mean like the first time I got into school and was able to do a presentation for a bunch of middle schoolers?
Exactly what I'm talking about.
All right. So remember, those successes are just as important as your survivor stories.
And please remember, they're not going to be required that you enter them at least once a year.
All right. So once you're finished, then you'll tell them that you are not a robot, and you will save and submit your reports. And you are now finished with your DV MSR in 2.0. And we thank you very much for attending.
Yeah, and if you've got any questions, please call the Coalition. Our toll-free number is 888-666-1911. And there is the contact information for Janelle and for me. But please know that with questions, call, and any number of us will be able to help you. And this has not launched yet, so please remember to keep sending in those paper forms.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.